Well, welcome, Jeff Heggie, Daily Success Strategies. If you've been following me, as you know, I've started to bring on some incredible guests with me so that we've got insight beyond what I was just sharing with you. And it's been awesome. The things that I've been learning. So I hope you've been learning just as much as I have. But I have another incredible guest with me today, Chaz Jackson. He is a coach. He's on the John Maxwell team. He's got incredible history. And the thing I love is he's got such a focus on youth. And he's a youth motivational speaker. And, you know, I've had the opportunity to know Chaz just for a short bit now, but I'm so impressed and I'm so excited to have this conversation. So thanks for being with me. And just please go in a little deeper and share more about yourself.
Jeff, just let me start out by saying thank you so much for allowing me to be on your platform. I definitely don't take that lightly, and what you're doing is phenomenal. So whoever's listening to us, go ahead, subscribe, share this out. Definitely get in front of more material that Jeff's bringing out, because he's definitely serving in his area of gifting. But Jeff,
Thank you.
I know me and you, we resonate a lot. So I'm a husband. I wear many hats. Husband, I'm a father. I'm a teacher in physical therapy. So I specialize in orthopedics. You also mentioned how I have a passion of youth and being a coach, and I love to focus on youth leadership in general, and also being an entrepreneur with Gift and a Gift, which as a brand for me. I feel that we're all gifted differently to make a difference. So physically, we're a gift, and I love to inspire to allow people to know that you have a seed of greatness inside of you. That's that other gift. And I'm very passionate about helping people discover that, become self-aware of that through personal development, and learn tips and techniques on how you can bring that seed of greatness to fruit to serve to the world. So short and sweet, something that I can talk for 2 hours, condensing it down into that short bit of diving deep. But God's allowed me to do some amazing things to be able to serve youth and educators, also being in authorship as well. So, and podcasters yourself. So yeah,
Awesome.
we're a lot of hats,
And that's one thing. At the end, I definitely want to give time that you can share so people know where to find you, what you're doing, those sort of things. But one of the things I normally don't start off with, but I want to because I think it's so impactful and I really love what you're doing with it. Tell me more about your podcast and the purpose behind it and that kind of stuff.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So Gift and a Gift podcast. Again, that motto is we're all gifted differently to make a difference. Actually, so the podcast started last year, but Gift and a Gift in general started back in 2016. Even dating even back to birth, growing up in Varsity, North Carolina, I'll kind of give the backstory on what inspired me to start Gift and a Gift. But growing up in a small town, unstable environment, Jeff, I can think back between age 5 to 6 years old, where it was, normal for me to see someone struggle with alcohol, being an alcoholic. It was normal in my environment, my neighborhood, to see drug addicts. It was normal for me to see, domestic violence. So what I like to call a lot of that stuff and those traumas and dramas, that can come out of those situations, even being as close as in my household, getting authentic, man. My mother, stepdad actually battled with drug and alcohol abuse. So a lot of, again, circumstances arise from that and created emotional baggage, what I like to call it, situations, problems that never truly created a solution from, if that makes sense. So problems that never had a solution. So when I say emotional baggage, meaning those situations, those circumstances can arise from, an unstable environment. It was just kind of stuffed in this bag and it was never dealt with. So as I progressed through childhood into my teenage years, all the way up to my adulthood, actually, man, until I was able to really gravitate and get around people to discover what exactly was in that bag that was causing me personally to have some red flag behavior, to be honest, because again, you know, none of that stuff was dealt with in my family. It was, you don't talk about your problems, if that makes sense. You just kind of brush them to the side. And I went on this journey, man, where, good things happen, but, you know, in order for me to carry that bag, I even gravitated towards, drinking, in which I experienced some alcohol abuse and, drug related activity, bad relationships, Jeff, a lot of things that actually helped me carry that bag. But as you all know, with, substance abuse and unhealthy relationships, a lot of that stuff is only temporary. It never truly, you know, fix the emptiness that's going on inside of you. You know what I mean? And uh, amongst other things, it created, low self-esteem, low self-doubt, low self-worth for Chaz Jackson. There was a point for me, Jeff, because I was getting bullied in school, where I did not like what I saw in the mirror. So again, a lot of that instability that was going on in Chaz Jackson. But I'll fast forward, you know, to the age of 25, man. It actually took a car accident to help me get back on track, Jeff. And I always brag on my wife. I call her the MVP of my life because she shared something after we had talked with my lawyer. This was in 2012, to be exact. And I marked this as kind of a transition point to kind of catapult me back to gifting a gift on that whole question that you asked. But the lawyer actually, I didn't hear it, but she shared with me. The lawyer said, "Hey, you need to get away from this guy because, the road that he's going down, at the point of that wreck, Jeff, I was at a point where I was losing her. I had lost my job. I had lost my car, all due to poor decisions. And a lot of that decisions were because of that emotional baggage that I was carrying all the way up to my adulthood, man. And I came to her and I was like, well, why don't you leave me? And, my wife's name's Amy, and she said these words that, again, I'll mark as kind of a transition. And I mentioned before that we all have a seed of greatness, and I truly believe that these words was something that watered my seed, if that makes sense. It kind of shifts me. And she shared this with me, Jeff. She said, "I see something in you that you don't see in yourself." And at that time, again, her watering that seed, as I discovered on my journey looking at it now, you know, that was when I took the daily challenge of really interrogating some of the things that was going on inside of that emotional baggage. And when I say interrogate, examining, like, why was I drinking the way that I was drinking? Why was I putting myself in the position to be behind the wheel of a car? And when I was behind that wheel of the car, I was inches away, actually, Jeff, from a head-on collision. And I remember turning that wheel to the right, crashing into a gate. Ironically, it was a gate of a church, to be honest with you. But again, I went on this whole journey of interrogating that emotional baggage. And whenever I decided to really open that bag, that was the first step that I took, was really getting authentic about what was going on in Chaz Jackson. And God put people in my path, me being a man of faith, of who I can like and trust. And that started with counseling, also getting good mentors, coaches around me, and really, again, discovering why did I have the belief system that I had. So I just took that daily challenge, Jeff, of taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back, failing. But fast forwarding to 2016, along the way, Jeff, as I was examining, interrogating that emotional baggage, that limited thought process that Chaz Jackson had, really discovering some solutions to those problems. Dude, I started learning stuff, man. And one of the biggest things for me was building an authentic relationship with Christ. And one of my favorite books is the Bible. and studying the Bible and amongst other amazing leaders like John Maxwell and Dr. Miles Monroe, and God just started putting, again, amazing coaches and mentors around me that was showing me how to grow in personal development. So again, as I was consuming all of this stuff, right? Let's imagine that the mind is a manager and the body is a restaurant. Like, so me consuming all of this produce, this food, right, in my restaurant, after so long, man, if you don't cook that food in your restaurant, what it's going to do? It's going to spoil, right? So, so for me, I had to learn that, hey, the more that I share and the more that I consume, the more information I take in, I had to produce it, right? I had to cook that food, if that analogy makes sense. So for me, on my journey to cook the knowledge that was really helping me overcome, you know, my low self-esteem, my low self-doubt, beginning to actually love Chaz Jackson. That's how Gifting the Gift was born, because I started posting videos on YouTube of, you know, things that I was learning and things that my coaches and mentors, you know, was pouring into me, and things that was working for me and my family, working for me at my job as I strive to get my life back on track. And I'll say, actually, here in 2021, you know, I'm happy to say, man, I haven't had a drink in over 8 years, man. So
awesome.
That whole journey of opening up that emotional bag, like I mentioned, and really getting intentional and holding myself accountable to not make those bad decisions and learn from those bad decisions, man. Gosh, man, I just been propelled to share, if that makes sense. So the whole podcast, branding, that actually started in 2020. Dom Brightman, amazing guy. He actually has a podcast, the Going North podcast. So whoever's listening right now, definitely check out that phenomenal podcast. He's a guru, a great guy. And he was actually holding me accountable, because we kind of had a conversation like me and you were having, Jeff. And I mentioned, like, after I was a guest on his show, I was like, man, I want to have a podcast. And he was like, man, you need to do it. You need to do it. And I kind of put it off, like we all do, right? Because it's so easy for us to put things off, or to point the finger at somebody, or to wish good things to happen and not take action on it, right? It's so easy for us to put that project on the back end. And that's what I was doing. But I thank Dom to this day, Jeff, because he held me accountable. He would shoot me a text and he'd be like, man, when are you going to start the podcast? When are you going to start the podcast? And so I'll you know, I love to give him kudos for, you know, keeping me intentional and allowing GNG Podcast to be born. So outside of that, and another thing that really ignited me to take the step of starting this podcast, when Brother George Floyd, due to police injustice, happened back last year, that was something that really hit home for me. I really wanted to do something to provide tips and techniques for young men as they strive towards personal development, because obviously we know that wasn't the right situation. If anybody not familiar with George Floyd, he actually died due to police injustice, and that actually ignited a series for me. So that was my first 10-week series on Gifting a Gift. So outside of yeah. So I encourage you guys, go back. I have some phenomenal speakers to come on and talk about how we can keep our young Black men safe, and how we can go to make better decisions when we are in those circumstances. So again, with that whole Gifting the Gift, it was created towards me growing personally in personal development, me having the intentionality to share with other people, again, good mentors around like Dom, and also me wanting to make a difference in our country. So that actually ignited Gifting a Gift, the podcast, last year in 2020.
Why do some people succeed at all levels beyond their imagination while others struggle? The mind is the key to your success. Even the best strategy won't matter without the right mindset to implement it. For those who desire to be great, to do amazing things and have an impact on the world, The Bigger Future Coaching Program is designed to take your life and your business to another level. If you're ready to make big commitments, be held accountable, and develop the success mindsets that'll take you beyond your dreams, join us today. Find out more at jeffheggie.com/group coaching.
Yeah, I mean, it's a podcast you guys need to go check out because he's got some great stuff in there and the whole purpose behind it. I just love it. So thank you for that. All right. So what I want to get into, and a lot of what we talk about in daily success strategies is we talk entrepreneurship and stuff, but you know, it doesn't matter if you're a entrepreneur, a business owner, a coach, an athlete, whatever it is. There's one thing that all is the same. If you want to be successful, it starts in the mind. You can't have a weak mindset and achieve all your dreams. So what I'd like to hear your thoughts on is how, you can apply this to whichever way you want, but I love the fact that you've got such a focus on youth, because I mean, if you can start with a powerful mindset as a youth and just continue to build that throughout your life, you can do amazing things. But if you're teaching and training youth, how do you teach them about having a powerful mindset and really believing in themselves?
That is an amazing question, Jeff. And there's so many lanes that I can take with this. So many exits that's popping in my head, but I'll just start with the first one that came in my head. I think, and this is for me, whenever, I've met speakers or been in conferences, in youth conferences, or heard other phenomenal speakers speak, I can relate on the sense of, thinking about your successes when talking with the youth. It's a little harder for them to relate to you based on your success level. Like, it's cool for me to go up there and say, yeah, I published a book, or, God's blessed me with being able to purchase a house this March, or, I've overcome alcoholism and overcame being in a poverty environment at a sense. And all of those success levels, it's good stuff. But when we're thinking about the youth and building the mind, most youth, or not even most, all youth, normally start thinking with the back of their brain, thinking from a neural aspect, meaning that occipital lobe, that amygdala, that's where we start when we're in our, young age, as far as childhood, teenage years, and it doesn't transfer to our frontal lobe until we're actually at the age of 25. That's when it's fully developed. So it starts to make that journey toward just thinking more with the frontal lobe. And when I say frontal lobe, meaning being able to critically think, being able to do complex thinking as an adult. So that's not necessarily complete until the age of 25 years old. So for me, when I think about that, if when I'm talking to the youth and they're thinking more with feelings, then as I, target them to grow in their belief system, I have to relate not so much on my successes, but a lot on my feelings, right? Because that's how I can truly make that connection, if it makes sense. So whenever I mention how I had low self-worth when I was a young kid, I truly didn't love myself. I'll be authentic with you. I don't know if you can see the scar on my forehead, even dating back to even another thing that I had in my emotional bag. I remember, getting this scar at the age of 6 years old and going to school and getting bullied, man. I actually remember coming home after school on days and just crying because, kids at that age, man, they don't have a filter, and me looking different. And I didn't really like what I saw in the mirror as well. When I got to the point to middle school, I actually started wearing a hat every day, Jeff. Every day I wore a hat to school. Every day I wore a do-rag to school because I didn't like what I saw in the mirror. So when I say feeling based, when I'm targeting a young person, I talk about my fear, right? I talk about my guilt that I had. I talk about the shame that Chaz Jackson felt at that time. I talk about not loving myself. And those are things that we can relate on, right? Because we all look differently. We all like different foods. We all dress differently. We all come from different backgrounds. But one thing that you and I, Jeff, or you and a young person can relate on is our feelings. So again, for me, I want to target feelings and allow them to understand that we perform at the level of our belief, not the level of our potential, right? So when I talk about that seed of greatness, man, that seed of greatness inside of us, uh, when I'm watering that seed, I'm watering it primarily with feeling based, and also, you know, allowing them to know, man, if Chaz can do it, you can do it. We'll put the bow on top, man, because there's nothing perfect about me. I don't know it all, and I'm looking for other people to expand past me. So, hey, that's what it's all about, man.
That's awesome. I'm taking notes as we talk, and I love that. We perform at the level of our belief, not the level of our potential. That's deep. That's really good. I love that. If you could go back, and you've kind of hit on this, but if you could go back and tell yourself one thing as a youth, what would that be?
Wow, that's a good question. If I could go back and when I was a young person, what would I tell myself? I would tell myself, Jeff, that you are enough. You are enough right now, because and I'll be honest, man, I'm still battling with that in my adulthood. I have tips and techniques to get myself, or in scripture it tells us, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So when I say that, I say this, there's so many things in the world that reminds you of your scars, if that makes sense, right? So
yeah.
I love what Cray says. He says that we shouldn't be afraid of our scars, because our scars show wounded people that healing is real, right? So when we're thinking about those scars, they'll still show up. People are going to still remind us of things. There's going to be situations remind me of my old feelings. But I will say to myself again that you are enough right now, and regardless of your circumstances, you can create a phenomenal life for yourself. And there's been some amazing things happen for me, guys. Even when I wasn't seeking God, He's put amazing people. One of those people being my football coach in high school, man. Again, when I didn't have hope, he was an amazing guy. He believed in me, and he was somebody that watered that seed as well, man. So some amazing things happened in Chaz Jackson's life as well. Having the opportunity to go play collegiate football. That was actually something that helped carry some of that emotional baggage, because I could be distracted from it, but it was a phenomenal experience. I don't regret it. I love football, I love sports, and it taught me a lot. But again, even dating back to when I was younger, man, it was just having those conversations and getting authentic about, some of the feelings that Chaz Jackson was having, because as you can realize, us as men, we live in a culture where it's just like it's not proper for men to share their feelings, right? At least for me, that's kind of what was taught to me, to kind of keep everything inside. But that will be one thing that I would share with myself, man, is that you are enough, and go ahead and open up and share some things, because holding on to it, man, it definitely creates some turmoil and some instability in your life. And I'll say this to whoever's listening to us: you got to have that 12 o'clock, 1 a.m, buddy who you can just call, that you like and trust, and really open up your emotional bag, because we still got it. It could still be full for me even today, but I got to take that daily challenge of sharing and being authentic with my feelings, my beliefs, and my opinions. So
I love that. Well, I want to continue on that just from something you said, because, I reflect as I grew up. I knew, no questions asked, my parents had unconditional love for me. I don't remember ever hearing those words coming out of their mouths. We weren't a family that hugged and kissed and said, I love you and all that. And that's something I've tried to change in my family. You know, like even my 18-year-old son right now, when he heads up to bed, it's I love you. And he says it back. And it's like really cool. Yesterday, I dropped my 10-year-old off at school. I pull his bike out of the back of the truck, put it down, and he gives me a kiss goodbye. And his teacher says, good job, Dad. and I looked at her and like kind of like, what do you mean? I love that a 10-year-old will still kiss his dad goodbye. And
I love that, man.
And I think, I think there's a lot to that. So just continue on what you were saying. Like, what are your thoughts on that, on showing that emotion and showing those feelings?
Wow. So let's even go back to a little bit more of my childhood. So, my mom and dad, they were never married. And my dad, he was actually separated at the time when he met my mom. They had their thing. He was going to get back with his wife. But hey, I popped up. Mom got pregnant. And as many men, and looking back, so I'm looking back at my perspective right now. I get it. He denied me and he was trying to fix his marriage. I have 2 other brothers on his side and he wanted to get back with his family. But again, I turned up his. So for me, man, my whole childhood, I was like in this triangle of families. So I had my father and my stepmother, and I had my mom, and she ended up getting married. I have 2 younger brothers and sisters on my mom's side. But my mom, I mentioned before that, a lot of my family struggled with drug and alcohol addiction, and my mother struggled. And I remember at the age of 7 years old, I went to go stay with my grandmother because she went to rehab. So that was that third to make that triangle. My grandmother and her boyfriend. I call him my grandpa, but I'll be 100, man. They're not. They've been together forever. I guess they're common law, man. But I mentioned this. I mentioned this, Jeff, because I'm going to project back to my children. So me being in the middle of this triangle, I'm painting a picture here. When I would go to my dad's house, me looking back as an adult, I knew he cared for me, he loved me, but I didn't truly feel that when I was there. And one of the reasons is because my stepmother didn't even come out of the room when I would show up there. And I noticed that, and I didn't feel that love there. When I go to my mother's house with my stepdad and watching the things that they battled with, I remember when my mom, she went to rehab when I was at the age of 7 years old, and my stepdad called my grandmother and he said these words. He said, I can take care of my 2 children, but what are we going to do with Chaz? So that's how I ended up with my grandmother. So I didn't truly feel loved in that household. When I went to my grandmother's house, she accepted me in. Again, like everyone else, I know she cared, but her boyfriend didn't want me there. So I'm painting a picture of, I had these feelings as a young kid of having 3 different households that didn't truly love Chaz Jackson. And that's going back to some of that emotional baggage. So I say this to say this. When I talk with youth, when I have my 2 girls, man, I'm getting cold chills when I talk about this, man, because I'm so passionate about this. They will never feel that way. Never, man. They will never feel that way.
Awesome.
My girls, man, and I know I'm not the perfect dad, man. I'm not the perfect dad, but they will never feel the way that Chaz Jackson felt at that age. Because my daughter Ziri, she's at school right now. She's kindergarten at 5 years old. When I had those feelings, I was her age. So it's like, man, like I'm going to love her to death, man. Some people say, man, you spoil them girls too much. I'm just like, yeah, I want to, man. I want to spoil them. And so kind of wrapping all that up, man, and putting a bow on it, I think as we're approaching our youth, man, they really know when you care. I mean, their energy meter is on. Like, they know when you're authentic. They know when you care. and they know when you're passionate about what you're doing and wanting to water their seed of greatness to help them serve their fruit based on their area of gifting that they're called to be in. So yeah, man. So I think my experiences allows me to be passionate. It's part of my why, if that makes sense, because of the experience that I had. I've seen the other side of the coin. So when I flip that coin over, man, and I've learned what I've learned. Uh, and even going back to that family, I have to throw this out here for the audience. You know, I said this before, we perform at the level of our belief, not the level of our potential. So my family's belief system is different from what I have right now. So based off the way that they was loving me, the way that they was caring for me, looking back as an adult, that was the best that they could do. So, I can't fault them for that, because when you look back on the chain, my mother experienced some of that stuff, right? My dad experienced some of that stuff. My grandmother experienced some of the same stuff that I experienced as a kid. So I can't stay in that victim role, Jeff. So for me, it took me having to learn to be victorious over my story, and just learn, hey, God allowed me to go through that because I'm here to serve someone else with my story and allow them to, hey, you don't have to go through that, man. Chaz Jackson is here, and I'm not perfect. I don't know it all, but if anything I can do to help you get to where you need to be, that's what I'm willing to do. So
I love that, because you read my mind, because my next question was going to be, how do you overcome that how do you go from no one loves me, I shouldn't even be here, all these limiting beliefs? It would be easy to carry that throughout the rest of your life. And obviously you've been able to learn from that and look at it from the standpoint of, God allowed me to go through this so I can do more for others. And yeah, I mean, you answered my question before I asked it. So awesome. Thank you. I guess if you want to add on that, because, as youth, our potential is unlimited. It's unlimited. We can do so much. And I really think the only reason some succeed and some don't is those beliefs and the limiting beliefs they put upon themselves to say, well, I can't do that. I can't go to college because no one else in my family's gone to college. Or I can't start a business because I'm not good enough. I can't get a college scholarship because, I'm the best football player on our team, but, no one knows me, those sort of things. How do you get the youth to believe in themselves, overcoming those limiting beliefs that are holding them back from exposing their full potential?
That's a really good question. And as I look back on my journey, there's been phenomenal people that was hope givers. I think I mentioned my football coach. At one point, I didn't truly believe that I can go on and play collegiate football, but I remember, and I'll try to not be so long with this story. It could turn into some 2-hour stories based on things that I want to share. I can remember my freshman year, 9th grade, walking into high school, and I was a huge Clemson University fan. That's where I wanted to go. That's where I wanted to play. And, I would say that to certain people, you ain't going nowhere, man. You ain't going nowhere. But Coach Cosby, I remember it, man. He had on a full Clemson jumpsuit, man. I mean, he had on, this is back with when the jogging suits was in style, man. He had on the orange jogging pants, and he had on a Clemson sweater. And I remember yelling and losing in the gym. I was like, man, I want to go there. I want to go there. And like other people, man, they would cut that dream down. He didn't. So he was like, man, if you work hard, you can make it here to Clemson. And that hope giver, right? I think for young people, they need mentors like yourself, Jeff, to really install hope in them, regardless of their circumstances, because, I feel like part of the world is designed to keep you on a low frequency, to be honest, man. So he was a hope giver. Fast forward into my senior year, man, we actually made it to a Clemson football camp. And dude, I went up there, I had an amazing camp. This was back when Tommy Bowden was there. And dude, like I was going to go into my senior year, man, that dream was coming alive, but it all started with Coach Cosby watering that seed that was inside of me, given me the belief and allowing me to have a voice on that whole subject and giving and listening to my voice. And that's actually going to jump into my second tip on that. So for me, man, I think it started with the Hope Giver, and there's many other, stories that can be brought out of that. But I'll wrap it up on this story though. So I didn't make it to Clemson. I actually got hurt my senior year, third game of the season. I fractured my lower leg. I thought my career was over. And I met another Hope Giver. He was a therapist, man. And his name was Brandon. He said, Chaz, if you do exactly what I say, I can get you back on the field. And I talk about these two individuals in my book, Live, Learn, Lead Powerfully. I actually have them in the chapter called Discovering Passion, because these were some passionate guys about what they were doing. And it was hope givers, man. There was people like I was sharing with my wife, Amy, which was a hope giver for me. They just watered that seed and gave me some hope, if that makes sense. And you know what's funny? I didn't make it to Clemson. I actually went to Western Carolina University. I actually met Coach Matt Rule. He's actually the head football coach for Carolina Panthers. So I met him there at that camp, and he gave me a scholarship. He actually offered me a scholarship on campus at that camp. But at the time, I blew him off. But it's ironic how God worked that all out. But fast forwarding to now, Joe, and I'll come back to that second point or a second tip on the youth. It's funny because of those hope givers, and that was the first tip, is having our youth around mentors and coaches, hope givers. I'm doing what they do, man. Like that coach that, inspired me to go after my football dreams. I've done that, right? That physical therapist who inspired me to say, man, we can get you back, and was pumping me up when I was down. I'm a physical therapist, man. So those passionate people ignited my life. And the second one, and then I turn it back over to you, that I feel that our youth can do to get their belief system on track, is having a voice, encouraging them to have a voice, because a lot of times, and what I've discovered is that voice is dialed out, even going back to my childhood and my teenage years, where you will see people be like, be quiet, you don't have a say so, you're not grown, stay in a child's place. All of these limiting beliefs that was poured on me, I encourage my young people and the teachers, the coaches, the parents that I've worked with to, hey, and your kids in your community, encourage them to have a voice. When you're having organization meetings about the school system and what you want to implement, you need to have kid leaders standing up there having those conversations. Like, they should be the ones up front, and you guys should be sitting down. So again, getting them around good mentors and allowing them to have a voice in their circumstances, I feel like is really key for developing our youth's minds.
I love hearing you talk about these things, because it actually it floods my mind with memories and just thoughts that you're triggering and stuff. One of my mentors, well, you talk a lot about mentorship, and I think that is such a vital role, whether you're a youth or you're a 80-year-old. I think mentors are vitally important. But one of my mentors, Steph Amundsen, always says, hope is so much greater than fear, or more powerful than fear. And then just because when this goes live, I don't know what the date will be, but on March 3rd, my Daily Success Strategies podcast was with Jamie Beckler, and it was Leaders or Dealers in Hope. And yeah, what you're talking about, hope and mentorship, is so powerful.
I feel like it is, man.
So
it is. So I think I heard it like this once before, and I know I'm gonna butcher this quote, but for me, I want to attempt it. It was like, man, you can go, 40 days without food. You can go like 4 days without water. You can go 4 minutes without breathing, but you only can go 4 seconds without hope. And I was like, man, that's so deep, man. Like,
that is.
Think about people that commit suicide or take their life or give up. they don't have hope, right? And so I think that's when we come in, Jeff. Like, we're hope givers, right? So
Yeah.
we start hoping people, hey, we know this world's messy, like it's dark. This is a dark world we're living in, but hey, there is light at the tunnel. You know, you can be in control of your circumstances if you only believe, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's what it all comes back to.
Absolutely. That is. It's so powerful. I appreciate that. Well, this is awesome. You've got so much great stuff to share. I appreciate that. Share with me or with our listeners where people can find you on social media, more about your book, more about your whatever you want to share, where people can contact you and follow you and get more.
Yes, sir. So I'll just start out with this. You can reach me from this phenomenal individual right here. You can reach me with Jeff, but you can find me. My website is chazjacksonspeaks.org. So you can reach me there. I'm on most social media platforms. I recently got a Twitter, man. I was actually doing another podcast individual, and it was like, so you don't have a Twitter, man? And I was like, no, man. So I'm now on Twitter, but you could, my Twitter is at Chaz Jackson 44, but all my other platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, you can find me at Chaz Jackson Speaks. And check out Live, Learn, Lead Powerfully. That book, I truly believe it's designed to align anyone's mind towards greatness. So going back to the emotional baggage, the things that I learned to overcome, some of the circumstances I was going in my childhood, I provided those tips and techniques in that book, Live, Learn, and Lead Powerfully. I'll also be looking for the impact of influence. So that's coming out. It launches on March the 27th. Phenomenal individual. I know I mentioned Dom, but Dom, I'll tell you this, Dom actually introduced me to Chip. So it's kind of like that whole spider web of networking. But Chip, when I met Chip, I knew like within, I'll be honest, like 3 minutes of our conversation, this was going to be somebody that I would want to resonate, that I want to fellowship with, because he's just a stand-up guy. I actually just relocated to Texas. So I'm in Fort Worth, Texas. I mentioned earlier, I'm originally from North Carolina. When we originally moved here to Fort Worth, Chip was like one of the first people that was wanting to link up with me to meet. Like within that first week, man, I was like, Chip, man, I just got here, man. Let me get like, man, I gotta meet you in person, because I knew him like a couple years prior. But he was just that type of guy, man. He really wanted to love on me, and he really believed in me. He's a true hope giver, educator. But him, along with some other amazing individuals, we came together and we wrote a book, The Impact of Influence. And I share a lot of my story, similar to, what I've done here on your show, in that book, in my chapter. And again, man, there's so much meat and wisdom. It's like when I'm around these guys, man, I feel anxious. I'm just like, man, do I supposed to be in this room with these giants, man? Like, I mean, it's that type of energy. So even if you don't get nothing from my chapter, check that out, man. And we'll provide that link for you guys to connect with Chip Baker at the Success Chronicles. So you won't go wrong adding him to your list either. So. And
Absolutely.
also being a John Maxwell a coach, trainer, and speaker as well, definitely, empowered through that as well. I'm actually a team member right now, but I'll say it's safe to say, whenever you do listen to this, I know, like you said, when you're going to take this live, I'll be a certified John Maxwell speaker, trainer, and coach. So that's going down within a week. So I'm super excited about that. And that whole journey as well, because I've met so many phenomenal people through John Maxwell. And if you haven't read one of John Maxwell's books, you definitely got to check out Leadership, a game changer that actually took me on the trajectory of joining John Maxwell Team from the beginning. So, yeah. So you can reach me through a lot of that stuff, man.
And I'll make sure I'll add all these links and everything in the show notes as well. And yeah, can't say enough about Chip either. He's been on a number of the episodes of the Daily Success Strategies, and actually his full interview is on the March 6th one, if anyone wants to listen to that. But hey, this has been absolutely incredible. appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge and wisdom. Congratulations on the John Maxwell certification. That is huge.
Thank you.
And such an incredible organization and what they do. So that's awesome. But thanks again, and I appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
Hey, athletes and parents of athletes. So much time, money, and effort is put into the physical aspect of your sport to become the best you can be. But the mental game, it's often neglected, and it's just as important as the physical game. In fact, it's usually the differentiator between the good and the great athletes. Come and join me in the Confident Athlete program where you'll learn to control your confidence, develop a powerful mindset, and unlock your full potential. Go to jeffheggie.com/confidentathlete to find out.
Some of you may know this, but in addition to my coaching, I've recently joined Geneva Financial Home Loans, a mortgage lender headquartered in Chandler, Arizona, as a mortgage loan originator. I've always had a passion for serving others, and now I'm proud to also be a part of Home Loans Powered by Humans. If you're in the state of Arizona and looking to take the next step in your journey, contact me at 801-830-3858 to start the conversation. NMLS number 42056, BK number 0910215, Equal Opportunity Lender.